Snow drifted gently over the Hamilton estate as I eased my modest Honda Civic into the driveway. The mansion loomed ahead, aglow with elaborate holiday lights, a clear testament to old money and tradition. My siblings' cars, Thomas's Ferrari and Victoria's Porsche, already dominated the circular drive, their presence shouting opulence, exactly as our parents had taught them. I smoothed my plain wool sweater, intentionally understated, betraying none of the fortune I had quietly amassed. My phone vibrated. Another property acquisition completed. I slipped it back into my pocket and turned toward the annual holiday gathering. Sophia, finally. Mom called from the doorway, her voice a practiced mix of irritation and festive cheer. Everyone's waiting. We almost started without you. Inside, the living room glittered with high-end decor. Thomas and Victoria reclined on Italian leather sofas, flanked by their spouses, each adorned with enough jewels to fund a small country. Still driving that thing? Thomas asked, glancing at my car from the couch, a smirk tugging at his lips as he adjusted his Rolex. My dealership could hook you up with something a little more. Hamilton. I like my choices, I said calmly, settling into a corner. Dad emerged from his study, papers in hand, mortgage statements and property deeds I already knew by heart. If only he realized I saw those numbers hours ago, from the other side of the deal. Mom clapped her hands. Let's move on to gifts. Sophia, we did make a few changes to yours this year, budget constraints, of course. Victoria tried not to laugh. Yes, the market's tricky. Thomas and I had to scale down our Aspen homes this year. Speaking of property, I murmured, checking my phone again. Another alert. 3 more overdue mortgages in my portfolio. But first, gifts. Thomas unwrapped keys to a new yacht. Victoria received deeds to a private island. Then it was my turn. Thomas led everyone to the window with an exaggerated bow. For our sister, something perfectly suited to her tastes, he announced. In the back garden sat the old tool shed, now adorned with a crude ribbon. We thought you could convert it into one of those tiny houses you love reading about, Victoria teased, giggling. I remained neutral, hiding the smile tugging at my lips as my phone pinged with another acquisition notification. Their property management empire had just changed hands. Well, it's the best we could do, Dad grumbled. If only you'd gone into real estate like your siblings, instead of whatever it is you do. I discreetly opened my banking app. Interesting timing, I murmured. Thomas, isn't your mansion's mortgage payment due today? His eyes widened. What? Just a thought, I said, smiling as I watched color drain from his face while he checked his account. Property management can be enlightening. Mom frowned. Sophia, that's hardly dinner conversation. True, I said, standing to peer at the shed outside. Why don't we talk about property values instead? How the Hamilton market has shifted this year, for instance. Dad's papers fluttered to the floor. What do you know about our estate market? Another buzz. The final acquisition confirmed. Hamilton properties were now under Sterling International control. I traced the boundary lines outside, the property only I knew had just switched hands. Oh, just what I read in the business section, I said casually. By the way, anyone checked who owns your property management company these days? The grandfather clock chimed. Phones lit up across the room, emergency notifications from Hamilton Properties Management. What's happening? Victoria's husband stammered, staring at his phone. It says our property manager has changed, Thomas muttered, frantically calling his financial advisor, pacing near the Christmas tree. Ownership transfer? But I own that building. I leaned back in my chair, sipping my hot chocolate, calm as the storm I had orchestrated unfolded perfectly before me. I watched the room unravel. Dad's hands shook as he scrambled through his documents, papers fluttering across the polished marble floor. This has to be a mistake, Mom said, gripping her tablet tightly, her nails immaculate as ever. The Hamilton portfolio can't just vanish. Actually, I said, pulling out my own device. It can. Shall I walk you through it? The room fell silent. I projected my screen onto the enormous TV, usually reserved for their vacation photo slideshows. A complex corporate chart appeared, placing Sterling International at the top, my company, though they had no clue. You see, I explained, while you were busy collecting yachts and private islands, I was quietly collecting something else, your mortgages. Impossible. Thomas barked, though his voice wavered. You work out of that basement apartment? I smiled. Yes, that basement apartment is the registered headquarters of Sterling International, through a subsidiary I own. I bought the building 3 years ago, just like I bought the bank that finances your Ferrari, Thomas. Victoria's champagne glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. But you never had any money. Remember that silly website you ran years ago? She stammered. I brought up more screens. It wasn't just a website. It was a revolutionary property management system. Every major real estate firm wanted it. I sold the patent for $900 million, but retained controlling interest. Dad sank into his chair. $900 million? That was only the start. I continued, switching to another screen. While you flaunted vacation homes, I've acquired the firms managing them. While you showcased your cars, I bought the luxury dealerships. Property by property, company by company. Phone notifications lit up the room. Thomas's panic rose. My Aspen Lodge, the Miami penthouse, all managed by Sterling International? I confirmed it, I said. Victoria's Island, Dad's commercial properties, and yes, even this mansion. Mom went pale. This mansion? Check your mortgage statement, I said calmly. Processed this morning. Sterling International now holds all Hamilton family mortgages. Dad's voice dropped. And none of us read the fine print. Exactly, I said. You've all been paying your mortgages to me for months. Those favorable refinancing deals last year?
Me.
Clerical errors in your favor? Also me. I wanted to see how long you'd coast on borrowed wealth. Victoria rose, trembling. But you're our sister. You can't just... Can't what? I asked. Build something of real value instead of consuming someone else's? Create wealth instead of spending it blindly. I checked my watch. Speaking of timing, Thomas, your Ferrari dealership ownership transfer should be finalizing now. His phone rang, and his face went pale as he listened to his lawyer. Now, I said, standing, about that shed you so thoughtfully gifted me. I tapped my tablet, and garden lights bathed the small structure. I'll keep it, a reminder of where this all began. Where what began? Mom asked, dumbfounded. The greatest acquisition the Hamiltons never saw coming, I replied. While you were giving me a shed, I quietly bought every property you believed you owned. Merry Christmas. Silence fell, pierced only by the constant ping of notifications, ownership transfers confirming what I had orchestrated. Their world of apparent wealth was crumbling, and my empire finally revealed itself. One more thing, I said, heading for the door. Those overdue mortgage payments? We should discuss terms. I'm thinking the shed would make an excellent office for those meetings. In the days after Christmas, the family dynamic shifted dramatically. I settled into my real office, the top floor of Sterling Tower, watching news headlines scroll across my screens. Sterling International reveals true ownership. Mysterious billionaire emerges. Hamilton family properties, now under new management. The hidden heiress, how Sophia Hamilton quietly built a $15 billion empire. My assistant stepped in, holding a stack of morning briefs. Miss Hamilton, your family has arrived for the 9 a.m. meeting. They're waiting in the shed. I glanced at the security monitors, suppressing a smile. The garden shed I'd converted into a sleek satellite office looked humble from the outside, but inside it was a technological fortress. Through the cameras, I watched them fidget on plain chairs, no leather sofas, no gilded cushions. Just the reality of simplicity. How long have they been waiting? I asked. Since 7 a.m., my assistant replied. Your brother tried using the old building codes twice. I gathered my files and stepped onto the mansion grounds. The shed now gleamed subtly, equipped with hidden tech that made it a symbol of my silent dominance. They stood stiffly as I entered, an image I'd never seen before. Dad's tailored suits replaced with generic attire. Mom's designer handbags absent. Thomas and Victoria looked exhausted, shadows of their former arrogance. "Let's discuss your futures," I said, taking a seat behind the modest desk. "I've reviewed your finances. They're troubling." "Sophia," Thomas began, his tone stripped of its usual swagger. "We're family. Surely there's a way to—" "Family?" I interrupted, pulling up their payment histories. "Was I family when you left me in the basement at parties? When you ridiculed my business ventures? When you gave me this shed?" Victoria dabbed at her eyes. "We didn't realize. You didn't realize that while you splurged, I was acquiring companies. While you amassed debt, I accumulated assets." I swiveled my laptop toward them. "Your combined mortgages now total $47 million, and they're all in default." Dad stepped forward, ready to argue. "We could sell some properties." "You don't own any properties to sell," I reminded him gently. "However, I am prepared to offer a solution." I handed each of them a folder. Their hands shook as they opened them. "These are employment contracts?" Mom whispered.
"Yes."
"Sterling International needs property managers. Who better than the former owners? You'll start at the entry level, of course. Work your way up. Learn the business properly." "Entry level?" Thomas sputtered. "But I ran my own company." "No," I corrected. "You ran it into debt. I bought it. Big difference." Hidden screens lit up the shed, showing their new roles, modest salaries, and stripped-down perks. Gone were the luxury cars, expense accounts, and private jets. "You have two options," I continued. "Sign, retain your homes as renters and learn how real estate empires are built, or refuse and face bankruptcy. Either way, this shed will remind you daily what happens when you underestimate me." One by one, they signed, hands that once wielded gold rings and signed blank checks now trembling as they pledged allegiance to their sister. "Welcome to Sterling International," I said, standing. "Report to HR tomorrow. Dress code, standard. No designer labels." As I turned toward the door, Dad finally spoke. "The shed, you're keeping it?" "Of course," I said, smiling. "It's the only property you ever gave me that wasn't tied to debt." Besides, I pressed a hidden button, and screens revealed real-time global real estate markets. It's where I do my best work. Speaking of which, how do you feel about managing properties in Alaska? We just acquired some interesting developments there." Their faces fell. The shed, their joke gift, had become their daily reminder of how far they'd fallen, and how silently I had risen. "Oh, one more thing," I added, pausing at the threshold. "Those weekly family dinners you always used to flaunt your wealth? We'll still have them, right here in the shed." Perspective is important. I left them there, surrounded by the proof of their failed attempts at status and my deliberate triumph. From my real office in Sterling Tower, I watched them leave the shed, heads bowed, finally realizing that true power doesn't come from showing wealth. It comes from quietly building it, then revealing it at the perfect moment. The shed stood as a monument, a Christmas gift that became a symbol of my patience, strategy, and ultimate victory. They had given me a garden shed, unaware I already owned their mansions. Now I owned their futures.